Hello, I'm Johnny Black of Chesapeake Search Partners. I'm a partner and founder of the 7-year-old recruiting firm, which specializes in the placement of professionals in accounting and finance, human resources, sales and marketing, and real estate and financial services. On the heels of Father's Day weekend, I'm excited to be part of the Citybiz CEO interviews and have the opportunity to interview my father, John Black, president of MacKenzie Capital. How are we doing today, Dad?
Thanks, Johnny. I'm doing great. Wish I was asking the questions as opposed to giving the answers, but we'll see how we go here.
Fortunately, that's not how it's going to work today. So to start, Dad, you work for one of the top real estate firms in the region, MacKenzie Commercial. As most know, a firm that specializes in brokerage, property management, construction services, and of course, capital advisory. Could you give us an overview of MacKenzie Capital and what you specialize in to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So MacKenzie Capital is a boutique capital advisory firm. We assist owners and developers in their real estate project capitalization and financings. We source both debt and equity capital. We like to say that we think and act like owners. And as you alluded to, Johnny, being part of the MacKenzie companies here gives us a wide range of resources and abilities here with respect to underwriting criteria. The leasing guys with respect to market, rental rates, and absorption, and tenancies. The construction guys from a cost analysis standpoint on ground up or adaptive reuse, and then the management side and the experience of a management company with 10 million square feet under management, understanding the operational expenses of various buildings and property types and the cost to use them. So we're a little boutique group, capital advisory group within the greater MacKenzie full-service real estate platform.
We quickly exited a generational strong market in what seemed to have happened overnight. Many, if not all, industries obviously were impacted. Can you give us some insight as to what you're seeing in your business and how the current economic conditions have been affected to your platform?
Our business, our platform, like virtually every company and business across the world, was impacted by the pandemic and COVID-19. And I think the impact upon our business has been, on a bifurcated or a disjointed basis. And it's been both at the capital source allocation standpoint and also then at the property level standpoint. And so the disconnect and the disjointed nature would be that, some capital providers have basically, frozen in their footsteps here, getting better here because we're now 3.5 months into it. But the first 3 months didn't know where this was all going and what was going on, and we're basically just frozen still. Others seem to be taking advantage of opportunities in low interest rate environments and still trying to get capital out there. And the same is true on the property types. Some property types were severely impacted. Hospitality and retail, obviously, are the two that come right to the top. And while others, such as industrial, e-commerce kind of distribution warehouse business is risen to the top and gaining great strength and benefiting from the new normal here with respect to causes of the pandemic.
You and your colleague, Brendan Harmon, over the last 3 months successfully closed in excess of $47 million worth of capital during one of the craziest economies, certainly probably you, and most likely anyone has ever seen. Can you provide any additional details to these transactions and how that got over to the finish line?
Yeah, thanks. Obviously, we had these transactions, most of the transactions in the pipeline prior to the March shutdown and pandemic coming upon us. But they covered a wide range of transaction types. There was the straight acquisition of a well-leased suburban office property. There was a recapitalization of a suburban office portfolio, which had one large vacancy, which then was a recapitalization of the entire portfolio, and then providing some additional good news money upon the ability of the owner to find tenant to occupy that building that had been recently vacated by a single tenant. We did a straight refinance of a maturing debt loan, and we did a land development deal for a freestanding restaurant that had come to the end of its useful life, and was fortunate enough to be sought after by a major regional convenience store operator, good credit, and wanted to ground lease, had an executed ground lease for the redevelopment or for that site once the owner completed the infrastructure and pad construction for them. So it covered a wide range. As I said, some of those transactions were aggressively priced. There was one which was had some discussions with respect to repricing, but we felt fortunate to have good lenders on board that stayed the course with us through the uncertainty of the early times of the pandemic, and were able to successfully close for our owner developers.
That's great. That's great. If you can share, what type of capital sources are remaining active right now, and what types of assets are they most interested in investing with?
Virtually, the only major who's not active anymore, or who's taken a little bit of a backseat, is the conduit CMBS side of our business, and we were never, a big conduit lender in the most recent history here of the last couple of years. But there is an inability of the conduit financing group to, or inability, I should say, to price and their B-piece notes of their product. So they're the only ones that have kind of stayed out of the market. The other ones, life companies, banks, and bridge financing, private equity kind of debt funds, they're all still out there. Although I will tell you, obviously, that the underwriting is more stringent. They're more conservative with respect to their loan-to-value, debt service coverage kind of constraints and underwriting. And the major change is that everything takes longer these days. So, the time frame to close has been extended. The underwriting is more conservative. There is still money out there for moderate, conservative leverage transactions. There's very inexpensive money, less. Some of the lowest interest rates I've ever experienced in my 35-year career of doing this. We're seeing, rates in the 3% range. And never in my 35 years have I seen 10-year fixed rate money in the 3% with numbers starting with a 3. So the good news is the money's cheap. The bad news is the transactions are getting a lot more scrutiny internally and at the various capital sources, and the underwriting is much more conservative.
As you've shared over dinner conversations throughout the years, the landscape of the real estate asset market is ever changing. For those holding a distressed property in the market, what advice can you give those owners on the capital that's out there right now?
It's a tough one. Obviously, I've lived through a few of these cycles in my career, and this one is taking on a little different persona than each, the one before. The dramatic decline and the precipitous nature of this decline. So from a distress standpoint, obviously the two property types that are most distressed are the retail and the hotel or hospitality side of the equation. MacKenzie Capital has done a lot of hotel financing, both development and permanent financing. And right now that is, severely stressed and significantly impacted from the lack of travel, et cetera, and the concerns due to the pandemic, as is retail and the restaurant side. The retail property type used to be driven by, food, fun, fitness, and fashion, and all of those kind of have gone by the wayside here. So from an owner's perspective, my advice would be to kind of look with a discerning eye at your assets and its position in the marketplace. There is rescue capital out there of various sizes, shapes, that can help if there is a plan in place of just staying the course here and surviving to the other side. I would also say look at adaptive reuses for the properties. If some of those components are no longer applicable in the new order of post-pandemic real estate, then what else could it be? For instance, we're seeing retail being converted to medical office use in a couple of instances, and so as I referenced, the restaurant free pad that we did, was converted to a ground lease for a C-store. So, I would look, at other opportunities, think outside the box. There is capital available. Lastly, I think, in the Great Recession, when we lived through that period, some of the transactions we did then are applicable probably to today, where we brought in a new partner on a pristine asset for a developer. It allowed him to monetize some capital, of which he used to then take and shore up some of his other problems that he was experiencing, and allowed him to get through the other side. Now, he had to give up some equity. So that would be my recommendation. There is capital out there if needed for recapitalizations, and I would look at the properties and their position in the marketplace.
We can all admit there remains to be a level of uncertainty in the economy and how the rest of 2020 will play out. No crystal ball by any means, but from your desk, are there any key indicators that you'll be tracking to gauge market stability as we wrap up a rather crazy second quarter and hopefully continue to move forward into recovery into Q3 and the remainder of the year?
Yes. Johnny, I'm not that smart, as you know. So from a macro standpoint, we're obviously going to track more of the pandemic and whether there's a second wave occurring. Certainly in all the time that I've been in this business, a change in the government, which is coming up in May potentially, and the re-election or the election itself, it will change some people's perspectives. So that those uncertainties, and frankly, the macroeconomics that we used to track, job creation, job reports, the things that you deal with, Johnny, in your business, is almost secondary. Are we going to come up with a vaccine that will help and make people feel more comfortable about going out in the public and shopping and traveling and those types of things? So, we're still in a highly uncertain time right now, and I wish I had an answer to kind of when we're going to see on the other side. But in the interim, you take advantage of what's doing well, and that obviously is the industrial side with the e-commerce and those types. So that's kind of how I see it currently.
Well, Dad, this has been fun. I know we both appreciate the opportunity to partner with Edwin and the Citybiz team on this opportunity to do this interview. In closing, just would like the record to be straight. Who is the number one athlete of the family? And we can sign off from there.
Can't believe you're going there, Johnny, but that's fine. Thank you, Edwin. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you, Johnny, for being the interviewer here for once. That's good. Thank you.